Good afternoon. My name is Glenda Silva, and I am Deputy Director of Programs and Strategic Alliances at Brooklyn Borough Hall. I want to thank everyone who was attending today's session. There are a few ground rules, or rather some ground rules that I would like to highlight. First, this session will be recorded and broadcasted on Brick TV at a later date. All attendees will have their audio muted and video settings off. Guest speakers will introduce themselves shortly and speak on the impact of COVID as it relates to their specialization. Prior to the session, we received several questions from constituents. The questions will be read by moderator Leanna Levine-Reisner from Plant Powered Metro New York. If you have a question during the session, please submit it in the chat function. We have a few co-hosts checking for questions, and they will ask some from there as well. If your question was not addressed, please email your inquiry at askeric@brooklynbp.nyc.gov. And before we begin, I'd like to share a special message from the Brooklyn Borough President himself.
Hello, I'm Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. By now, maybe you've heard my life-changing health story, how I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, had nerve damage and sight loss. But I was able to reverse my conditions by adopting a whole food, plant-based diet. And I'm committed to sharing information about the advantages of whole grains, beans, vegetables, fruit, nuts, and seeds into a daily diet. I've enjoyed sharing my Digital Wellness Wednesdays series with so many Brooklynites and New Yorkers. The series features doctors from around Brooklyn who specialize in general medicine, internal medicine, emergency medicine, and more. And because of your enthusiastic response, I'm here to announce that we're now expanding the series to include an additional element, the Mind, Body, Soul edition. This 3-part edition includes experts bringing you interactive information and addresses mental, physical, and nutrition-related questions. It also features a dietitian who can help you jumpstart your own plant-based nutrition regimen with yoga, cardio, and cooking demonstrations. So I invite you to start or continue your wellness journey with me. Join my info-packed webinars, Wellness Wednesdays, the Mind, Body, Soul edition. And please tell a friend. I hope to see you there.
So I would like to now turn it over to our moderator, Leanna.
Hi, Glenda. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
And I know these technical things, they come and they go, but no worries. We've got a great group here and we're excited to get started. I'm very happy to be here because the Brooklyn Borough President has been such a wonderful advocate for so many different wellness activities out in the community, and obviously bringing it online in these interesting days we're in. I represent Plant Powered Metro New York and serve as its network director. We empower people to find better health and overcome chronic disease through whole food, plant-based nutrition. And if you know the Brooklyn Borough President, you know his story of healing from diabetes using the same eating pattern that we try to teach about in communities. So we offer evidence-based education, resources, and support to create community and inspire change throughout the New York metropolitan area. I'm going to drop our website into the chat box for those who haven't heard about us before, as well as our Twitter handle and Instagram handle. And please continue to introduce yourselves in the chat box. Let us know where you're joining us from today and what you're hoping to learn. How new is this discussion to you? And what's wonderful is the Wellness Wednesday series is exploring wellness, not just of the body, but also of the mind and of the soul. Last week, there was a session addressing the mind with 2 mental health experts. And today we're actually talking about soul, which begs the question, what does nutrition and food have to do with soul? You'd think it'd be more about body, right? So as you know, with Brooklyn Borough President Adams' own healing experience from diabetes, and many of us who've gone through the process of healing from chronic illness, thanks to the food that we are eating, that healing process is a deeply personal experience. And each of us is experiencing health and sickness on our own terms. And the ways that we cope with illness are very different based on how we understand the body, disease, our own sense of spirituality, and just taking things as they come in life. So what we want to do for you today is to bring a new level of awareness of how transformative food can be, not just in helping you to prevent and overcome illness, but also in helping you to sort of shift your understanding of life itself, which seems pretty crazy. But food is not just fuel, it's also power. Food has the potential to heal us, it has the potential to harm us. Food gives us perspective on how our earth sustains us, on how miraculous life is, and how deeply interwoven we are with our environment, whether it's the small microorganism that lives in the dirt, or it's a large expanse of land that provides the sustenance for hundreds, if not thousands, of people. So at Plant Powered Metro New York, we believe that when we put plants at the center of our plate and experience the healing that comes along with it, that is a spiritual experience. And our soul can be made whole in part with this new perspective on food and the body. So today we're going to learn more about why healing is possible with plants with dietitian Irena Rosenthal-Tawil, and then we'll meet with two local chefs, Brandy Cochran from Plant Candy and Ed Cooper from Brooklyn Blend, who will demo plant-powered recipes for you. And as they mentioned, we will be fielding questions from the chat box today, and we'll be addressing many of the questions that were addressed through the registration forms. So we'll be sure to fold those into Q&A. But to get us started, Irena Rosenthal-Tawil is our registered dietitian who's based here in New York City, specializes in plant-based diets for the prevention and management of chronic disease. Irena works as a dietitian with New York State, helping people with developmental disabilities, and she also runs a virtual nutrition counseling practice and develops plant-based nutrition starter guides. She is dedicated to helping people transition to plant-based lifestyle and creating a kinder world for animals and the planet. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Irena.
All right, hello everyone. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Great. All right, so I'm really happy to be here as a contributor in this series, and I hope that you'll find this information I'm about to share meaningful and relevant. You know, our health is an incredibly important topic at this time, and as we know, having a chronic disease like diabetes or hypertension, it puts us at higher risk for developing, you know, more severe cases of COVID-19. So we want to make sure that we keep our immune system strong. This is a little bit more about me, but Liana already introduced me. Okay. So despite the confusion surrounding diet culture and nutrition, there's really only one diet that comprehensively addresses the reversal of chronic diseases, a whole food plant-based diet. And decades of scientific research shows that a plant-based diet prevents, treats, and reverses chronic diseases more profoundly than any pill on the market. A plant-based diet is not your typical weight loss diet. Yes, people tend to shed excess weight within the first few months of adopting this way of eating, but weight loss is just a positive side effect of eating this way, and the benefits really extend further than you could imagine. But today I want to discuss the benefits relating to the leading causes of death in the United States, which is heart attack, diabetes, and cancer. So why go plant-based if you have heart disease? And this also applies to people with a history of heart disease in their family. A plant-based diet is the only diet that has been proven to reverse heart disease. And pioneering studies by Dean Ornish and Caldwell Esselstyn and others have shown that plant-based diets improve cardiovascular conditions such as atherosclerosis, which occurs when the arteries become narrowed or blocked due to a buildup of plaque. So one study that I like to refer to is the Lifestyle Heart Trial.
And this study set out to determine whether a low-fat vegetarian diet can reverse coronary heart disease after 1 year. In the experimental group who followed a plant-based diet, 82% of participants experienced a change towards regression. So that means that their arteries were unclogging. While the participants in the control group who followed a regular diet that was recommended by their doctor or their dietitian saw a progression of their lesions, meaning that their risk for heart attack was actually increasing. The Lion Diet Heart Study, that was a randomized control study that tested the effectiveness of a Mediterranean type diet on heart attack recurrence rate. The subjects in the experimental group were instructed to eat more root vegetables, green vegetables, fruit at least daily, and less red meat. And they saw a 73% decrease in coronary events and a 70% decrease in all-cause mortality. And this study was actually stopped early because the experimental group was experiencing such amazing results. All right, why go plant-based if you have diabetes? A plant-based diet is the most powerful diet for preventing, managing, and reversing diabetes. And the study that I often like to refer people to is Neil Barnard's randomized control study. You might have heard of him before. And his study compared the effectiveness of a conventional diabetes diet that is recommended by the American Diabetes Association to a low-fat plant-based diet. So this study randomly assigned 100 people to either one of the two diets. And at the end of 1.5 years, the researchers compared various clinical markers such as cholesterol, weight loss, and hemoglobin A1C. And you could see that those who ate a plant-based diet reduced their cholesterol and hemoglobin A1C more than the other group. And they also lost more weight than the group who ate the conventional diabetes diet. And this was pretty amazing because the plant-based group, they did not restrict their calories or their carbohydrates, which is what usually is recommended for people with diabetes. Why go plant-based if you have a history of cancer? So the same diet that has been proven to prevent heart disease and diabetes just so happens to be the same diet that helps prevent cancer. And plant-based eaters appear to have the lowest rate of cancer of any diet. They have been shown to have 16% lower risk of colon cancer compared to non-vegetarians. And women who drink cow's milk could increase their risk of breast cancer by 80% in comparison with women who drink soy milk. All right, so why are plant-based diets so special? What is it about a plant-based diet that works for preventing and reversing all of these chronic diseases? The scientists point to the special damage-preventing compounds found only in plants, and this is known as a phytochemical. Phytochemicals are helpful in both preventing and fighting disease because they strengthen the immune system, they reduce inflammation, prevent DNA damage, help DNA repair, and slow cancer cell growth. And the plant foods that have been shown to be the most effective cancer-fighting foods include broccoli, flax seeds, tomatoes, and soy. So there's some pretty strong evidence for these foods to help prevent cancer. Another way plants seem to be protective is their rich source of fiber. Fiber is known as the roughage or the bulk of the plant, and it's part of the plant food that your body can't digest or absorb. Instead, it passes relatively intact through your stomach, small intestine, and colon, and then out of your body. And eating more fiber provides a wide variety of health benefits, including reducing your cholesterol, stabilizing your blood sugar, and normalizing your bowel movements. Women who eat fiber-rich foods are 25% less likely to get breast cancer later in life. And eating just 10 more grams of fiber a day can actually lower your risk of colon cancer by 10%. Plant-based eaters also tend to consume fewer calories. It's as simple as that. And that's because plants are generally less calorie dense. So while some foods help prevent cancer, other foods are strongly linked to high risk of cancer. And there's strong evidence that some animal products, such as processed meat and red meat, actually increase the risk of cancer. The World Health Organization and the International Agency for Research classifies processed meat as a type 1 carcinogen. So that means that this substance is strongly linked to cancer. And processed meats include, but aren't limited to, hot dogs, bacon, ham, salami, and sausages. Red meat is classified as a type 2 carcinogen, which is a substance that is likely cancer causing. So studies conclude that there really isn't any level of processed meat or red meat consumption that is considered safe. And dairy products is linked to increased risk of prostate cancer and breast cancer. Okay, so what is a plant-based diet? A plant-based diet emphasizes whole plant foods in their most natural state, meaning that they come straight from the ground and they're not processed in a lab. Here are the basic principles. Eat a variety of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, tubers, nuts, and seeds. Limit or completely avoid animal products such as meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and dairy. We want to emphasize whole, minimally processed foods. We want to limit foods that contain oil, sugar, salt, preservatives, and chemicals. We want to avoid cooking with oil. And we want to pay attention to food quality. We want to choose organic when we can, and local foods as well. Okay, so this is probably what most people think of when you talk about plant-based diets, a salad, right? Salads are delicious, but they're also not very filling, and they can get pretty boring. And this is what food on a plant-based diet can look like. Colorful foods made with a variety of spices and herbs, and it includes things that you eat regularly, like pasta and sweet potato fries and even brownies. So one of the enduring misconceptions about healthy food is that it's bland and it's boring, and people fear that they'll never enjoy food in the same way again. But it's important to understand that those fears are rooted in food addiction. Our brain is wired to crave salty, sugary, fatty foods, and these foods light up the pleasure centers in the brain, similar to that of a drug. So letting go of these foods is really no easy feat. But the good news is that our taste buds can adapt quickly, even within weeks, and you can retrain your taste buds to enjoy foods with less sugar, salt, and fat. So once you formulate a new baseline for your taste buds, the foods that you used to eat might taste, too sweet or too salty. So these are the foods that we want to embrace on a plant-based diet. And these are the foods that we want to avoid. But if we cut out meat, dairy, eggs, processed food, what's left? What's left for us to eat? So literally everything else. Okay, people tend to assume that plant-based diets are restrictive, but that's because the standard American diet is centered around animal products like meat, dairy, eggs, and processed foods. So it might feel like you're giving up most of the foods that you've been eating your entire life, but you're also adding hundreds of plants to the menu. And these plants will quickly become a staple in your diet, and you might find that the variety of foods in your diet has not shrunk, but actually has increased. So I included a slide about tofu. Most people are pretty iffy about adding tofu to their diet because they don't know how to prepare it, or they've never tried it before, and it kind of looks weird and has a weird texture. But look at all the different ways we could prepare food. We could prepare tofu. We can grill it, we can put it in a curry, a barbecue sauce. You can add whatever type of herbs and spices you'd like, because tofu is a blank slate and it takes on the taste of the sauce or the herbs that you add to it. Okay, so this is a pretty easy method to prepare a healthy, balanced, plant-based meal. Of course, you can make your meals a bit more complex, but it's also okay to eat really simply. Step one, you want to choose your non-starchy vegetable plus your leafy green. Leafy greens are great because they provide the most bang for your buck nutritionally, and these vegetables should take up about half of your plate. Step two, we want to choose a starchy vegetable or whole grain, and this will fill up a quarter of your plate. Step three, we want to choose a plant-based protein, which will also fill up a quarter of your plate. And step four, choose a low-fat sauce, dressing, or condiment. So this is a very efficient way to start eating a plant-based diet. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the nutritional considerations, like where you get your protein on a plant-based diet. Plant-based foods are very nutrient-dense. They're the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. So developing a nutrition deficiency on a plant-based diet is pretty rare, but it is important to intentionally incorporate some foods that are rich in specific nutrients. And getting enough protein on a plant-based diet is a common concern, and that's because protein is usually associated with foods derived from animals. But the good news is that protein is widely available in plants. In fact, all plants contain protein. Even plants that we would normally be considered a carbohydrate, such as quinoa, has 8 grams of protein per serving. On average, men need 54 grams of protein per day, and women need 46 grams. So this is dependent on your height and your weight. And these protein goals are pretty easy to reach as long as enough calories from vegetables, whole grains, legumes are consumed. So this is what you would need to eat in a day to obtain all the protein that your body requires. So, it's not as much food as you think. Luckily, plants are also a rich source of calcium. Plant foods such as leafy greens, tofu, tahini, dried figs, and nuts and seeds are rich in calcium. Plus, they're packaged with tons of other health-promoting nutrients. Omega-3 fatty acids are found both in animal and plant sources. You can choose to get omega-3s from fish and seafood. However, because our oceans and our waterways have become heavily polluted, it makes the fish and fish oil supplements a highly contaminated source of industrial pollutants. But meeting the daily recommendations for omega-3 with plants is pretty easy. You could eat a tablespoon of chia seeds or 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds or 6 walnuts. They all do the trick. You could also supplement with omega-3 algae supplements. And the studies find that the algae supplements have all the benefits of fish oil without the potential risk of contamination. You've probably heard that vegans and vegetarians can't get B12 because it comes from animals, but that's not true. Vitamin B12 is produced from microbes that live in the Earth's soil. And we used to get B12 from drinking untreated water and from bacteria-laden manure. But because now we drink treated water and eat very sanitized produce, these are no longer reliable ways to get vitamin B12. But we can get B12 from alternate sources. So there are some foods that are fortified with B12, such as plant-based milks. Nutritional yeast also is a source of B12, but the most reliable way to get vitamin B12 is through a supplement. And the recommended daily amount for B12 is about 2.4 micrograms. And you can safely take higher doses because it is a water-soluble vitamin. So there are many ways to get started. I've noticed that my clients find it easier to choose one meal a day. Breakfast is usually the easiest because people have control of their breakfast. You could also start simply by adding more plants to your diet, like filling up half of your plate with vegetables. Or you can start by switching out animal-based foods, such as milk, cheese, and yogurt with the plant-based alternative. And I think we're done. These are my resources.
Excellent. Irena, thank you. This is great. I wanted to start by addressing some questions that came up offline, and then we had some questions also that came in about soy, so we'll get to those shortly. Can you tell us a little bit more? There were some folks who were asking about sluggish bowel movements and trying not to use laxatives and other over-the-counter things to address it. Is eating a high fiber diet enough, or is there something special people should do who have issues with constipation?
That's a great question. Americans are very deficient in fiber. Most Americans are not getting enough. About 3% of the population is actually eating enough fiber. So you definitely want to make sure that you are getting recommended daily fiber, and that's about 30 grams or more. Most people who eat a plant-based diet are actually getting twice that amount, and that is the amount that we probably should be getting. So just by increasing the plants on your plate, that is definitely going to help with bowel movements. Once you're on a laxative, it is very difficult to get off of it because our bowel system becomes used to laxatives. But it is possible. So I would definitely start by increasing the amount of plants on your plate. It's a good place to start.
Great. And let's talk specifically about diabetics. Now, you had presented to us great information about diabetes. What is it that's actually making the difference here for diabetics? Everybody talks about carbs and how bad they are for people with diabetes, but what you're presenting here is quite different.
Yes, that's also a great question, and it's a topic that I address often. Usually when you see a dietitian or a doctor, they'll tell you that you have to go on a low carbohydrate diet, but often this does not improve the diabetes. In fact, it makes it worse because they replace the healthy carbs like the sweet potatoes and the whole grains with foods that are high in saturated fat, like meat and dairy and eggs. And saturated fat is one of the biggest causes of diabetes. Most people think it has to do with eating too much sugar, which does definitely contribute to developing diabetes. But once you're eating a lot of saturated fat, that actually clogs up the cells and doesn't allow the insulin to communicate with the cell receptors. So once you reduce the amount of saturated fat in your diet, you can become more insulin sensitive. And so that is one pathway to reversing diabetes.
Excellent. Somebody actually asked in a question, should coconut oil and coconut meat be avoided? And I think this relates directly to what you were saying about saturated fat. Can you speak to that?
Sure. Yes. So oils are definitely not a health food. And I would say if you have a chronic disease and you're working on managing it or reversing it, you want to avoid oils, and that includes coconut oil. Coconut oil has been shown to raise cholesterol because it is a saturated fat. So I would say coconut, the whole food is probably better. But if you do have a chronic disease, you want to reduce the amount of saturated fat in your diet. So I would say to avoid coconut and coconut oil as much as possible.
Great. I'm going to take a question from the chat box. Can you talk a little bit about what you recommend people do to curb their cravings, whether it's sugar or salt or coffee or chocolate?
Mm-hmm.
What do you recommend?
That's a good question. I would recommend starting to replace some of the foods that you crave with foods that are high in fiber, because those foods usually fill you up and you can eat a lot of them. So if you have a craving for sugar, we want to start changing our taste palette, our taste buds. So our taste buds can get used to eating real foods, because we have to understand that a lot of the foods that we eat that are processed are very heavily concentrated in salt, sugar, and fat.
Totally. Yes. I know for me, whenever I want my sugar, I'll eat a date. I'll eat a whole date. It's missing some of the water because it is a dried food, but it gives me a little bit of that connection to sugar that helps me out. And there was another question about good snacks to eat, to munch on. What do you recommend as snack food?
Fruits, 100%. Start with fruits. I would recommend nuts and seeds, but you don't want to go crazy because they're very concentrated in fat and can be high in calories. You want to make sure that you're not eating processed foods. So something like rice cakes is a good in between because it is still a whole grain, but it might not have like the added fat and the added salt and sugar.
Mm-hmm. Right. There was a follow-up to this. What if the cravings are really feeling like an addiction? That sounds like a situation where you probably want to work with somebody more specifically on a coaching basis. But what do you often say to people who have addiction relationships with food?
Yeah. Sometimes we have to treat food addiction like alcoholism. People who are alcoholics, we don't tell them to drink less, right? We tell them maybe you shouldn't be having any drinks, then you should kind of go cold turkey. And the same could apply to food, depending on who you are and what, if you do have a history of being addicted to certain foods. So sometimes it's better just not to eat them at all, to keep them out of your house, not to purchase them. And some people feel like they are in control over their food addictions, and they could have a piece of cake once in a while or a cookie once in a while, and that's okay. It really depends on you and your personality type.
Great. Thanks so much, Irena. Let's go to the soy questions. A lot of people have heard that maybe soy is a problem because of its estrogen levels. And there are also tons of different kinds of soy products. Not all of them are whole food based. Can you unpack some of this discussion for us a little bit?
Sure. I'm a fan of soy. I'll just say that I've been eating it for a long time. So soy actually has a lot of health benefits. And a lot of people think that if you eat too much soy, it can affect our hormone levels. But the research has not indicated that. It's actually indicated the opposite. I think in one of my slides, I had a fact about consumption of soy reducing risk of breast cancer. So that's what the research is pointing to right now. And I recommend eating whole food sources of soy. So we don't want to get our soy from processed granola bars or any type of processed food. We want to be eating soybeans or organic tofu. Those are much better sources of soy. And you can diversify your plant proteins. You don't necessarily have to eat soy or tofu if you feel that your body doesn't get along with it. There are so many other options.
Right. I think also in terms of some of the alternative meat proteins that are out there, there are, the soy protein isolates and other what we would call plant fragments. And in that situation, those are also not healthy because they're still, not a whole food. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. They will definitely be considered a more processed food. They're probably not necessarily aligned with a whole food plant-based diet, but I eat those foods every once in a while as a treat because they are delicious. Sure. But yeah, you definitely want to stick to the less processed sources of soy.
Right, exactly. Good stepping stone foods toward, figuring out how to embrace more plants and fewer animal products. We're going to have to transition over to our first demo in just a second. For the last question, I wanted to ask, there was a question about fish. somebody saying that it's good to avoid eating bigger fish because that's going to be where more of the toxins are concentrated. If people choose to eat fish, would smaller fish be reasonable? And for people who have some diseases already, this person says Parkinson's, is that going to be a problem, let's say, or what's a way to think about this?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Yeah, the bigger fish are generally more contaminated because they eat smaller fish who already contain a lot of these pollutants. But we have to understand that even smaller fish, they still contain microplastics and different toxins that have polluted our oceans. So even the smaller fish, they still contain some contamination. I would say to reduce as much as possible. Fish tends to have a health halo. People think of it as a health food, but it still contains a lot of cholesterol. And because it's a very fatty food, fish store a lot of fats, a lot of toxins in their fats. So we do have to be careful. And that's why women who are pregnant are told that they need to limit the servings of fish that they consume.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Irena. I know we didn't hit everybody's questions, but we'll try to consolidate some of those and see if we can get answers back to folks afterwards. I want to thank you so much for sharing all this really foundational information with everybody, and encourage those of you who want to learn more to reach out, and we can point you toward resources that are really evidence-based, because there's a lot out there that is not firmly based on science, and it's important to make decisions that really are grounded in the science. I want to get Chef Brandy going. Chef Brandy Cochran is joining us. She is the founder of Entrepreneur Meal Plan, which provides a space for leaders to connect, share resources, and have real talk about what it means to be well-rounded business people. And she has combined her passion and experience as a creative strategist and a plant-based chef to help over 150 creative professionals and entrepreneurs develop ideas, find affordable resources, and take the guesswork out of eating simple, nutritious, and delicious food. She is also the co-founder of Plant Candy, which is a company that focuses on helping families and communities to find simple, affordable ways to add more fruits, veggies, and whole grains to their diets and enjoy them. She's passionate about protecting the environment and has been featured in the New York Times and New York Daily News and other publications for her community beautification work. So Chef Brandy, we are so excited to have you here. Take us into your kitchen. Let's see if we can unmute her.
Hey, thank you for having me now. Sweet. Hey, everybody. First, I wanted to start off by saying I'm excited to be here. And Irena, I really love your presentation, how you grounded us in the foundational plant-based principles, so to say. And especially as a plant-based chef, it's really exciting to show people that you can eat so much more than just salads. With this lifestyle, you can get really creative and fun. And that's what we're going to kind of do today. And I know that this particular conversation was grounded in like COVID. How do we manage things via COVID? So what I wanted to show us today was something that we could do around takeout. So I know a lot of times, like with takeout becomes something that we, at the beginning of this, we weren't sure if we should be doing it. If you decide to do it, it's a lot of effort. They tell you should take things out of the containers and switch your bags and all that kind of good stuff. So I created a fun way that you can explore plants, kind of take that craving for takeout and get the edge off and go from there. So we're going to do a deconstructed sushi today, and I'm about to move over to the demo kitchen and start the demonstration.
Great, and I'll be sharing Chef Brandy's recipe in the chat box through the file, so it'll be coming in just a moment.
Hey, can you guys hear?
Yes. We see your knife.
Yes, this fun little tool here. Sweet. So I'm going to start with just some rice. So, you know, one of the ingredients in sushi is rice. Now, this is just some pre-cooked brown rice that was just made, literally just water and brown rice. And what I'm going to do at the start is just add a little bit of rice wine vinegar to it. When they make sushi rice in a restaurant, that's what they do. They take it, they treat it with a little bit of sugar actually, and rice wine vinegar. I eliminate the sugar. I don't feel like it's needed. And usually what they do is they put it on a sheet and they fan it so that it can kind of cool off and congeal, so that it has that stickiness from the rice. So that's that. I'm going to set that aside while we prep everything else. Now, I am going to include in my sushi deconstruction today rice, mushrooms, cucumber, carrot, and a red pepper. So that's going to be our collection today. So I'm going to start with the mushrooms. I really like cooked mushrooms a lot better than raw, so I tend to cook them. So for this one, we're literally just going to slice them. Just simple slices, no fancy cut, slice. And I'm going to just put these in a pan. While these are cooking down, I'm going to start with this cucumber. And we're going to cut this down. Now, today I'm just using a traditional, this is just a regular organic cucumber. There are different types of cucumbers that we have. We have the hothouse cucumber that we tend to see with the plastic on it. What's interesting about that cucumber is grown in a greenhouse all year round. So you're able to get the same quality regardless of when you pick it up. I also tend to like the little baby Persian cucumbers. Those are definitely one of the things I like to keep on hand for a snack. And as you see, all I did was just cut this down into shapes and then cut them into strips. And I'm really, really big on cutting things in order because it makes the experience of cooking a lot easier. Just by cutting in shapes and then taking the time to strip it, everything's already, so it's a lot faster. So I'm just going to put these on a plate as I prep everything else. Now, one thing we're talking about cooking, a thing that drives them crazy is like just the amount of work that it takes. A lot of people don't like to cook because it takes a lot of time. So what I like to do is find simple ways for us to make this time a lot faster in the kitchen. So the one trick that I love to share with people is how you can use a spoon to do a lot more things than you think. So you can actually peel a carrot with a spoon. You don't need to go get some fancy peeler or pull it out and then try to clean out all of the skin in between and all that stuff. So this is just one way that you can kind of make your kitchen experience a little more efficient. And in the recipe that Leanne is going to share with you, you guys will see that there are multiple things that you can include in your deconstructed sushi. These are just the things that I had around the house today. So this is what I'm using for today. My personal base for this particular thing, I always do carrots and cucumber. I just feel like those are like a requirement for sushi. And then I build off of that. Same here, just going with lines. And I'm gonna cut them a little smaller.
Randy, what do you suggest for people who don't feel so skilled with a knife?
Cut carrots a lot, but if not, cutting carrots gets you really good at cutting with a knife. But say for instance you aren't, I would say start with a smaller knife. My favorite one that I recommend is I should know what it's called. It's the Sonoko, I believe it is. It's a Japanese Sonoko knife. It's a little smaller than this one, and it's just easier to handle. So that's the one I would recommend starting with. And it's literally just practice. So now we have our carrots ready to go. I'm gonna put these on the plate. So we're gonna go with the red pepper. Back. A little piece out.
I always love watching how people prepare peppers because there's so many ways to do it. I like to cut the tops off of mine and then pick out the insides.
I'm
got it down.
I'm going to prepare them. I like that technique as well. That technique's good too. And because we're going to go with strips, I'm just going to strip these. And I'm going to half them as well. So I know a lot of questions, people usually wonder, like, what do you wash your produce with? Just a tip, I know they have this expensive kind of produce wash on the market, but you can effectively clean your fruit with a mixture of water, apple cider vinegar, and baking soda.
Excellent. I love when it's just standard stuff you'll have in your house rather than a special product that you have to buy.
Me too. So those are the vegetables that we have. We're gonna get back to this rice that we're gonna put on this dish. Now, one thing that I know a lot of people, when you go to a sushi restaurant, you usually have pickled ginger, wasabi, and pickled ginger and wasabi. Now, just in case, like, I happen to keep like wasabi powder in my house. I know this is not a staple, but I happen to keep wasabi powder in my house. But they have these really cool seaweed snacks that already have wasabi on them. So if you don't have it, you can get that heat from the wasabi snacks without having this powder. So I tend to recommend using these ones on this particular dish. So this is just a simple pack of seaweed snacks that I got from the local grocery store. Wait. I also keep pickled ginger in the house. This brand I really like. It's really cool. It doesn't have any like dyes and all kinds of stuff in it. So this is the one I like. It's a little more challenging to find. I ordered offline. But if you don't have this and you want that kick of ginger, you could literally just use some ginger powder. And what I usually do is just stir this into the rice. So you still are going to get that flavor from the ginger that you may be looking for. And if you have some fresh ginger, you could use that as well. Now, again, another tip, you can also peel ginger with a spoon. So another one of those things when you're talking about how we not wasting produce, being more efficient, and getting the most out of the things that we buy, this is one way. Because I know a lot of times with ginger, you see people like cutting off so much of it, especially like even when you're making a smoothie. So a spoon is a really good way just to get the skin off, but to still be able to have the root available.
I love that. It looks so easy.
It really is. It's super like it's so easy.
And I love, I'm just looking, the Ginger People is the name of the brand of pickled ginger that Brandy showed us. Often we see pickled ginger that's pink, and that actually has a color additive in it. So it's nice to go natural and get just the yellow ginger.
Exactly. And so then this right here is one of my favorite tools. It's the brand is called Microplane, but it's just a hand grater. It really helps you to get the most intense flavor out of your herbs, out of your zest. Say if you're going to zest a lemon, a lime. So I like to use it with ginger so I can really get that punch. I like ginger, so I want to taste it. I don't ever want ginger to be hidden. So we have that stirred in. Now, all the vegetables that were created, let me just hold on before I start up. I was just stacking on a little plate here. So we have this wonderful array of ingredients. I'm going to throw a little bit of rice here as well. And the mushrooms that were cooked, there was rice wine vinegar, sesame seeds, garlic powder, and a little soy sauce added to that. And
That's
if you
so
want
gorgeous.
some good old soy sauce in the center, bam. And now we have this really fun way to experience sushi at home. You can use any vegetables that you have. Like I always say, your base is nori rice, and then you can fill it with whatever. It's a great thing that you could introduce new vegetables to your kids. If you guys want to try some things, it's a great way to get stuff out of the refrigerator. So you had like a leftover pepper, half of a cucumber, a piece of a carrot. You could just kind of pull this all together into this, and there you go. And you would literally just construct it this way. So you just take the nori sheet, put a little rice on it, grab like something from every every one of the groups. Pepper. Just roll it up, dip it in. Okay. Dip it in. Good.
Delish. What a great way to do it. It's so much simpler than the rolling and everything falling apart all over the plate.
Yeah, so there you have it.
Beautiful. I just want to make sure everybody got the file that I sent through the chat box. If you had any trouble, just privately message me. I also have an image file we could share. Thank you so much, Chef Brandy. This is really awesome. I love new ideas for how to make it easy and fun to eat plants in the kitchen. And obviously the colors are part of the whole experience as well. The more colorful, the better. So you've shown us great stuff today. With that, we are going to move over to our next presenter, our next chef, and that is Chef Ed Cooper. And I have to share a little bit of information just about their business, Brooklyn Blend. They are offering healthy options to inner city families for healthy eating. Brooklyn Blend is a minority family-owned business by Ralph Warren, Keyshawn Warren, Ellie Coutard, and Ed Cooper. Brooklyn Blend provides high-quality, healthy, nutritious food options for the entire family, and they strive to promote a personal, healthy lifestyle and culture within the community, which it may be often difficult to find for those who are in lower income communities. So we've got a dynamic father-son team of Keyshawn and Ralph Warren, along with co-owner Ali Coutard, who use their life savings to personally design and construct a comfortable environment with reclaimed wood and materials sourced from various parts of Brooklyn, including the Coney Island Boardwalk. How cool. Old water tanks and demolished buildings in neighboring Bed-Stuy. Brooklyn Blend's head chef, Ed Cooper, offers a wide array of custom menu items to complement his Trinidadian roots, and hence the name Brooklyn Blend. Menu options are named after familiar locations from all ends of Brooklyn. And they just opened a location in Brownsville, Brooklyn. Ed Cooper's with us today, and he told me before he's got about more than 15 years of experience chefing and just loves what he's doing. And I'm so excited for him to share with us some amazing dishes today. So Ed, let's turn it over to you. Bring us into your kitchen.
How you guys doing?
Hey.
How's everyone doing today? Hopefully everyone is doing good. I'm happy to join you guys here live from our kitchen, back of house. Obviously, my name is Keyshawn Warren. I'm one of the owners here. And Jim Cooper, who's also an owner, I'm going to share his experience, his background, and we're going to do some fun cooking today. Guys, he's a little shy, so I might do some of the talking for him.
That's okay, Keyshawn. That's great. It's a tiny bit hard to hear you just because of the din from around the restaurant. So if there's a way to really bring the microphone up close, that would help.
You guys hear us now? A little better?
Yeah, give it a try. I'll interrupt you if we have any issue.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, Ed, what are we cooking today?
So today we're going to make curry jackfruit, cuckoo, and callaloo. So this is the jackfruit right here. Those are the restored jackfruit. Very, very healthy for you. All vegan, gluten-free. A lot of nutritional minerals, iron, a lot of good stuff for you.
So as Ed stated, as being a juice bar, we try to give options to communities. And this is actually one of the dishes that we're trying out. Jackfruit, like as Ed stated, is very healthy. A lot of nutrients. It also has a lot of cancer-fighting agents, as a lot of people don't know. Cuckoo, which is also made from cornmeal and okra, also has a lot of cancer-fighting agents, also really good for you. And when you couple these ingredients with the right spices, it tastes just as good as your stuff that's not healthy for you. So we're happy to introduce these ingredients.
Okay. So now we're going to start off with the cuckoo first. And the callaloo at the same time.
add some okra, onions, and some pimento pepper. It's a very flavorful pepper. Not hot, but flavorful. A little olive oil. Then our vegetables. Our vegetables here. Okra, onion, pimento peppers. Could be something like 5 minutes. Mario gets put in the problem. Here also, we have thyme, sweet peppers, onions, garlic, all sauteed. After that, we're going to add some chopped spinach. Add our okra. And your pumpkin.
Amazing. I love these combos, and I don't cook with okra at home because I always have trouble making it taste the way that it should taste. But okra and jackfruit and pumpkin is just an incredible mix.
Very easy to work with. Very easy. Incorporate all of this right here. And you're going to add some water. Like where we add, like, and I like a half cup of water. Three-quarters of a cup of water. Now you're going to cover it for a little bit. Tonight, smelling good. Now I'm going to add some garlic.
Now, are we doing to give you guys that now? Right now, actually, our way to do that with the Zoom technology, but it's also amazing. Let's see, you got to see what comes in here. And again, most importantly, it's our support.
This is also a little bit more. Nice color.
If only we could all have pots like that. They're beautiful.
Would you like a microphone? Got it. Yeah. First, open up. Stand it up. Ready to go. Now we're gonna add this together. Whoa. Let this come to a simmer. Full board, then to a simmer.
So at this moment, Ed is stepping the pot into the glass tube. Before you cook it, you take the pot as needed. Prep that for about a minute or two, and we'll add those ingredients to the glass tube.
Keyshawn, it was a little hard to hear you. Could you come onto the screen and tell us what you just said?
Right now, we're adding the jackfruit. We're prepping the ingredients for the jackfruit. Just take off for 2 minutes to warm the pot. When that's warm, we'll add the ingredients for the jackfruit.
Excellent. Some great ideas going in the chat box here from participants in our call. So keep sharing your ideas. What are your favorite recipes that you like, either to be as your home base, things you come back to over and over that are easy for you to prepare, or if you have questions, how do I live this lifestyle? How can I make plants part of my life even more? Please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll come back to some questions at the end.
Vegetable slices. masala. We got cumin seed and ground cumin.
Beautiful. Keishan, will you be able to share a recipe with us after the fact, or even just, I don't know if you want to detail out what goes into the dish in case people want to try it at home?
Absolutely, we'll definitely share the recipe with you. As you stated, it's very common ingredients, very easy to get, very, not costly or not pricey. We'll definitely share that with you guys.
Great.
That's the salad right here.
Great. We're going to try to wrap up soon. How many more minutes do you need to finish off the dishes?
Like 20.
Say that again?
Like 15 minutes.
Okay, so maybe what we'll do is cut out for a minute and just address some more questions, and then we'll come back to you when you have more to show us. Is that okay?
No problem.
Excellent. I'm going to see what we can do about getting the recipe and getting it to the folks who registered for today. So thanks for asking, everybody. I think it would be great to go back to some of the other questions that came up earlier, and please feel free, if other questions have come up, go ahead and pop them in the chat. There was one question about what do you do if you're already eating a high fiber diet and you're having some trouble passing your bowel movements, even so. Maybe that high fiber is causing some challenge. I want to bring Irena back. Irena, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, excellent. Do you want to share what you would say to folks who are sort of struggling with the high fiber transition and maybe ongoing issues digesting and processing fiber when you move to a plant-based diet?
Sure. So that can be a very common issue. When people transition to a plant-based diet, their bowels might not be used to eating that much fiber. So you want to slowly transition. You don't want to go from eating, 15 to 20 grams of fiber a day to eating 80, which might very well end up happening. So you definitely, sometimes if you're experiencing flatulence, you want to decrease the amount of fiber that you're eating. Our gut microbiome is not, which is the bacteria in our gut, the good bacteria, is not always used to digesting that much fiber. And fiber is actually their food source. So if we don't have the proper bacteria in our system, we can't handle all of that fiber. So, it's definitely a transition. I'd also say to increase fluids as well.
Great, yes. And a question had come in previously about, is there a good water that people should buy, or is just plain old tap water the right way to go?
I think that depends on you. Tap water has been proven to be safe. I know a lot of people do like to have distilled water or mineral water. I'm a big fan of mineral water. I like it a lot. Yeah.
Great. Just checking out other questions that came in here. Let's see. I think we addressed most of the ones in the chat box. If we didn't, and I missed you, please go ahead and reshare it at the bottom. I'm going to bring out the others though that we had from before. Somebody had asked about triglycerides. Are there specific foods that can help normalize high triglycerides, or is that something that's just going to naturally respond well when you're eating mostly whole plant foods in general?
Yeah, so triglycerides is it's the fat in your blood, and it can be variable depending on the time you take your blood test. Like if you've had a high fat meal right before you took your blood test, your triglycerides can be elevated. But usually when you have a history of high cholesterol, you'll also have high triglycerides. So that will decrease once you decrease the amount of saturated fat and cholesterol in your diet.
Great. Okay. And we just got a question. Let's say your glucose or cholesterol is high, and then you've started eating a plant-based diet and are trying to really make this central. How long before rechecking your blood work to see if you're making progress?
That's a good question. If you're diabetic, you should be checking your A1C at least every 6 months. If not, I'd say every 3 months is good. And that's because your A1C doesn't change from day to day, but it's a measure of the amount of glucose in your blood over a 3-month period. So as long as you allow that 3 months, you're going to be able to see that change.
Right. And with cholesterol, I mean, these are things with just day-to-day glucose and cholesterol, you're going to see quick changes, right?
Yes, cholesterol is much quicker. You might be able to see a difference in 3 weeks, a month, but I would not recommend going to get a blood test every month. I would still say 3 months or 6 months is fine.
Right, and those aren't always covered by insurance too, so, great. Someone else asked about olive oil, and there had been a discussion earlier about coconut oil. Talk to us a little bit about olive oil. I know there's certainly folks out in the field of plant-based nutrition who are using some olive oil in their preparations, but is it harmful or is it beneficial? Tell us what you know.
Yeah, so the science about oil keeps evolving. I usually recommend, especially if a patient has a history of heart disease and diabetes, to go on a low-fat diet and to avoid oil as much as possible. Obviously, that's not always realistic. We use oil for taste and texture. So I'd say if you wanted to include a teaspoon to give your food more taste, and that is actually going to help make the food palatable for you to consume, I think that's okay. But if you have a history of chronic disease, I'd say to avoid it as much as possible. In terms of olive oil, that food also has a health halo, and I don't actually think olive oil is better than any other type of unsaturated fat, but because it was a component of the Mediterranean diet, people tend to think it's a healthy oil. It doesn't seem to raise cholesterol as much as more saturated fats, such as coconut oil and butter. So yes, on the spectrum, it's probably better than coconut oil, but I would still try to avoid it as much as possible.
Right. And how about somebody who really wants to try to lose belly fat? We learn about visceral fat, the stuff that is, showing us that there is chronic disease within the body, chronic inflammation. Talk to us about belly fat and how that's related to plant-based eating, or losing it is related to plant-based eating.
Yeah, belly fat is really stubborn. It's really difficult to get rid of. You can't exercise your way out of it. And it will decrease once you start losing weight. That's really the only way to decrease belly fat. But also people tend to be bloated after meals. And so once you start eating more plants, you eat more fiber, hopefully the bloating will decrease and you'll see a difference.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Denise just asked about avocado and grapeseed oil. From what I understand, olive oil is actually on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of saturated fat content, but even these other plant-based oils, avocado and grapeseed, have higher saturated fat levels and are still just the fat extracted from the plant itself. So what do you say, Irina? Better to eat the avocado? Better to eat the, I don't know if people eat grape seeds, but we certainly have their oil on the shelf.
Yeah. Yeah, similarly to what I said before, you want to avoid oils as much as possible. You want to get your fats from whole foods. So I think I just saw a question about salad dressing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I usually do for salads, I'm a big fan of salads, but I take avocado and I mash it up and add some lemon and some coconut aminos, some apple cider vinegar to give it flavor. And that's my salad dressing. And the avocado acts as a fat, because usually with salads, you want something fatty to help you digest it. You could also blend up cashews and other ingredients to make that a salad dressing, and the cashews act as a fat as well. And something like hemp seeds is also really good. But yeah, oil is oil, and we want to avoid it as much as possible. I'm sure there's a difference in quality of oil. So if you are using oil, you want to get better quality oil. And you definitely don't want to heat certain types of oils, because once you heat oil, it can become oxidized and can be carcinogenic. So that's another thing to be aware of.
Yeah, for sure. And I just shared a resource in the chat box about oil-free vinaigrettes. A lot of people like different kinds of vinegars as something to add a little bit of that acid that really brings out the flavors. Lemon and lime juice are great to mix in with carrots, or if you have like a high-speed blender that can make a carrot dressing. There's a lot of amazing oil-free dressings online, and you can search for oil-free salad dressings, and you'll find plenty of people in the whole food plant-based world who have put out their great ideas. I want to just check back in with our folks at Brooklyn Blend to make sure we see the end of their dishes. We are going to wrap up in just a few minutes. So Ed and Keyshawn, are you there? See if we can get their attention. Hey, Keyshawn, can you hear? Here he is.
Hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you show us what these dishes are?
Sure, no problem. So this is a kuku dish, and it's basically completed. And again, guys, we would post this once the doing is completed. We look at the recipe online. Where can you go? As we're adding the spices for our jackfruit. Jackfruit can take no more than
Smell that? Leave it come off of that.
Great. I wish we could get those flavors here into our homes. It's a shame to have such beautiful dishes over there, but obviously we encourage folks to give their dishes a try up close and personal when you can. We have to close out right now, and we will try to get the recipe out to all of you. I want to hand it back now to our friends and hosts at the Borough President's office and just say thank you so much for helping us to explore this today and to put wellness on the agenda so strongly and proudly. It's really fantastic to have Brooklyn Borough President Adams as a strong leader in this movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana, for hosting and moderating so wonderfully today's session. I want to also thank Irena, Chef Brandy, and Brooklyn Blend. Thank you all for all the amazing demonstrations and healthy tips. We want to invite all of you to our next Wellness Wednesday session, which will focus on physical health. Same time, same place. So thanks again. Be well and be safe. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.